thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Laura. Actually, I'm very excited to be here. It's my highlight since lockdown.
So you've had a really impressive career history to date, working for some of the biggest players in the LNG industry, such as Shell and also JERA. I'm really intrigued to know how you got to where you are today and what some of the biggest challenges were along the way.
Started my career with Kuwait Petroleum a long time ago, and I was there for 10 years doing oil and oil products. I've done an MBA and shifted to natural gas via Shell in Dubai. Shell was an amazing school for me, especially in the LNG world, as they were having a huge ambition on making their portfolio the biggest in the world. And I went through them with two integration of Repsol portfolio and BG, and I learned quite a lot of the intricacy about the LNG market in that career. Joined JERA 2 years ago to expand their portfolio to not mimic, but to be a portfolio player, going from a utility buyer to navigate through the risk and the volatility of the market.
And how did you find the transition between the roles? Because as you say, Shell is a portfolio buyer and JERA was quite up and coming in the market then, trying to transition from a buyer to a portfolio player.
Shell was an established and been in the LNG market as a portfolio buyer and seller for a long time. So it's a different thing, but JERA has a vision to become the one of the leading portfolio players in 2030, 2025, actually. So, and they have all the elements to be that. They have the third largest portfolio in the world, 35 million ton. They have a larger commitment of developing LNG. I think they're still investing in Santos, I heard the other day, in Australia. So for them, the security of supply, whether for Japan and the world, is very important. So I think that was very exciting for me. Of course, every role has its challenges, and startup is different than a well-established company like Shell. But I enjoyed my stint there very much.
Of course, it's a really interesting time in the LNG market at the moment. We have record low spot prices, lots of demand uncertainties, particularly those related to coronavirus. And we've also seen mass cancellation of US cargoes as well, which is a new thing for the market. So I know this is $1 million question, but I'm really intrigued to know what your thoughts are about the market going forward over the next 6 months or so.
I still have a lot of hope for the LNG market, and I think everybody, I think if you're there in LNG for a while, you know you have these cycles in the LNG because of the investment and the time to take to do all of these projects. You will have cycle of boom and bust. Sometimes you will see 20% Brent, and sometimes you see $2 LNG. But I don't think it's bad, because this is how demand triggers as well. Everybody was thinking oversupply was coming because of all the FID delayed, that 2019 or 20 will not be a strong LNG in terms of the sales side. But for a buyer, for example, for these spot prices, it will incentivize the buyer to switch more to gas, maybe displace coal and grow their mix as well. The COVID has extrapolated all this and made it even more bearish for the LNG. And I think the market will need 24 months, 36 months to correct.
And of course, data is really important to you as an LNG trader, but also myself as an LNG analyst. So how do you think platforms such as Refinitive's LNG service help you to make better decisions as a trader?
The LNG, as it's a bit of opaque commodity, we receive a lot of data, and we need a lot of data. So to have these data in a centralized place, to have the supply demand, to have the maintenance, to have where's the trade flow going, all of this information coming, the platform do a lot of work for that, instead of having your own established analytic decks and all these tools coming into. So the quality of the information grows with the platform, and how many people also participate in that platform make the information even more relevant.
And what do you think is the most exciting opportunity in the LNG market at the moment?
Well, I think the energy transition and how serious that's becoming right now is a huge growth potential for the LNG market, whether it's between gas to power, and how do you put that into with the renewable and everything else, because LNG is the lowest carbon emission fossil fuel, as well on unlocking pockets of demand with maybe, let's say, mid-size LNG. So the big floaters of 180K from US to Asia. I think the next wave will be not, well, of course we had the LNG bunkering and small scale, but now it's the mid-size, the 70, 80 for the small, let's say, area to develop in the LNG market. So there's a lot of growth, I think, coming from power.
Which countries or regions do you think have the most potential for LNG demand growth over the next couple of years?
I think apart from India and China, which are the most obvious, the emerging markets, especially in Asia, the smallers, like whether it's Thailand, Myanmar, using the FSRU technology, especially now with China providing that at a low cost and a very short duration, that around less than a year, maybe 9 months, to have a regasification terminal is there. I think that will help a lot of small, like Thailand, maybe islands, Maldives, coming into the LNG market and to replace fuel oil and diesel. So that will be a big demand uptake that the analysts maybe did not count on before.
And of course that will help the market to rebalance. So when do you think the market could show signs of supply and demand balancing out?
If I'm bullish, let's say the bullish side, I will say the end of 21. The most likely scenario, I would say mid 22, and the worst case scenario, I think by winter 22. But I think by 23, we might see actually prices going to a more bullish cycle because of the lack of the FID to date for that.
Well, thank you, Sarah, for a really interesting chat today.
No, thank you for having me.